Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Bisma Mirza and you're watching Strategic Depth. Today we are discussing an article written by General Khalid Ahmad Kidwai. It is on nuclear Panacea. Panacea is a solution to all the problems, a solution to all the ills. And from the perspective of General Khalid Kidwai, nuclear is that Panacea. General Kidwai's article can be divided into many segments. One, in the first initial segments, he talks about the brief description of the world orders, the old world order, the current world order, and the new world order. And he talks about it from the global perspective and then the Pakistani perspective. And he also talks about the evolution of the nuclear power and the challenges it has gone through to evolve. He talks about, he talks about that not only we are living in interesting times, but historic times as three superpowers of the world, United States, Russia, and China, they are competing, they are restraining, and they are confronting where possible with each other to leave put their global footprint. And he talks about how in the how in the 90 in the after the World War II, United States became the sole world power, and it faced challenges then also, and it continues to do so now. He talks about how after the demise of USSR in the 1990s, the byproduct was Russia, and how Russia has struggled in the past 2 decades to militarily, economically, technologically, dominate itself and to regain the same position. He says both these world powers, they faced challenges, they had their vulnerabilities, and they got exposed in the Afghanistan issue, and they left a global political influence, influence. Then he talks about that this story doesn't end. Even in the current scenario, you find that both of these powers, they are again engaged in the Ukraine conflict, United States indirectly and Russia directly. And the drop scene or the closure, the conclusion will determine the future and will pave the way for the future. He says, however, that from a global perspective, nuclear panacea in a global perspective has two issues which are relevant and close to Ukraine conflict. One is of the energy as a strategic tool of war, and second, he talks about the possible use of nuclear weapons, especially tactical nuclear weapons. He says we also have to take into consideration the hypothetical possibility of what if Ukraine did not give up its nuclear arsenal. And he says as these current situations are there, a new world power has emerged, and it is he called China that's new world power, who is posing a challenge on multiple arenas for United States, economically, militarily, politically, and technologically wise. He says both Russia and China, they are aligned against the supremacy of United States, and reiterating their narrative, their perspective of Shanghai Cooperation, which was held in September 2022. He also discusses that the identifiable US responses in terms of geopolitical and economic strategies. He says the US strategies are to retain its preeminent dominant position by the sheer use of military and industrial power and alliances. And these strategies, he does a comparison of United States strategies and China's strategies. He says his United States strategies are in considerable contrast to Chinese strategies, which are seemingly more confident, and they are exercising strategic patience in order to asserts its global position of eminence through the tools of economic power, its soft global reach, and growing military, nuclear, and technological prowess. And then he says, while this chessboard is there, it has been laid. Where does South Asia and Pakistan stands? And he poses a number of questions, and I quote them. First is, where do South Asia and Pakistan figure out in this emerging global future? What are the emerging challenges for Pakistan, especially in the context of its national security interests measured whether in economic terms, including the contribution of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, or in military terms, including its strategic deterrence capability as a nuclear weapon power. While discussing that, he says there are two things which are given for Pakistan. One is its strategic location, which serves as a trade and security corridor. Second, he talks about Pakistan's nuclear weapon power with this, and he says that Pakistan is a responsible nuclear weapon power with the need, desire, and capability to further its objectives in the field of civil nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Now he says, while we're debating about the possibility of a nuclear Panacea, he says, I would like to very confidently state that the Pakistan, in the economic terms or in security terms, nuclear Panacea for Pakistan is a godsend. It's God's gift to Pakistan. That's why it has eliminated many of Pakistan's concern in these areas. And then it divides this article explaining how it has helped Pakistan in military wise, economically. And in the first aspect, he talks about in the military terms, Pakistan's nuclear capability has proven beyond doubt to be an asset and a security panacea. As an asset, it has clearly, satisfactorily addressed Pakistan's long standing dilemma of conventional forces, asymmetry with adversaries in the east, because of he says, because of a robust nuclear weapons capability articulated to the policy of full spectrum deterrence, Pakistan is secure from possible aggression by its larger neighbor. He also says that he has repeatedly said these things. He has repeatedly has said this on numerous occasions, and just for the emphasis, he will say again, Pakistan's nuclear capability as the great equalizer has proved to be an instrument of peace enforcement in South Asia. From economic perspective, he says Pakistan's nuclear energy program as a nuclear panacea has provided various governments of the day display the necessary vision, understanding and support to Pakistan's nuclear energy vision 2050, which stands duly approved by the Pakistan's National Command Authority since 2011. What is the Nuclear Energy Mission 2050? It envisaged in the provision of 42,000 megawatts of clean, safe, and relatively cheap energy to Pakistan's economic growth needs through the subsequent installment of series of nuclear power plants across the country in all four provinces. One of the salient features of Nuclear Vision 2050 is that very early on, after the installation of the first few pairs of nuclear power plants, for example, Chashma 1 and 2, Chashma 3 and 4, Canap 2 and 3, the program starts to earn for itself over time. It became self-financing, and so as not to place any financial burden whatsoever. Pakistan's 7 nuclear power plants, including 4 at Chashma and 3 at Karachi, are pioneering segments of the Nuclear Energy Vision 2015, and they have gone a long way in providing the capability of safe, clean, and efficient operations. The global perspectives of embargoes and restrictions inhibited Pakistan's venture into the areas of many years to Canap 1 only until China became Pakistan's reliable partner in the development of nuclear power. A 325 megawatt pressurized water reactor, Chashma 1, was set up at Chashma in collaboration with China. Chashma 2, Chashma 3, Chashma 4, Canap 2, and Canap 3 followed, making it a total of 3,600 megawatt. K2 and K3, which is Canap 2 and Canap 3, are modern generation 3 plants. There is a strong economic logic for Pakistan to stay the course and continue to build more nuclear power plants as per Nuclear Energy Vision 2050. He discusses that saying, which is, it is difficult to make predictions, especially about the future, has really been true for nuclear power, which has seen many ups and downs for the 70 odd years that it has been around. He discusses the evolution, how nuclear power, gained popularity, what were the apprehensions and the incidents which took place, the concerns, the critiques they talk about and discusses only a few decades ago when people were worried about fossil fuels were going to last only for another 150 years. Nuclear energy stepped up and gave the option, presented itself as the option, reliable option, practical and limitless option of safe, environment-friendly, and economical-based load option. So before that, there was the nuclear rush, and a few hundred nuclear power plants were operating in the developed countries, while India and Pakistan also ventured into nuclear game. Obviously, there was opposition to nuclear energy by some civil society groups, mostly in the developed countries that were going big on nuclear energy, but the nuclear experts professed a very strong that it is quite safe, belief, and paid only rudimentary attention to the opposition. Things were going great until the incident of 3 Miles Island accident took place in 1979 in the United States, a major blow was dealt to the development of nuclear energy, taking the wind out of its potential growth. For example, after the 3 Miles accident, no new nuclear power plant was ordered in the United States for almost 30 years, despite the fact that there were no casualties. And at that, there were no significant radiation leaks outside the plant. And to top it up, the Hollywood movies, the China syndrome, however, crashed in and did great business while Lemon and Jane Fonda scared the wits out of the audience. The Chernobyl accident of 1986 was again a bad advertisement for the nuclear energy, and the industry had even more consequences as the radiations did indeed spread out outside the plant, creating considerable worldwide panic, particularly in Europe and UK. Both accidents are engraved in our, we say is that how these incidents are engraved in our memory, our nuclear energy history as well, and it has been a negative iconic moments in nuclear energy history. And interestingly, General Kidwai witnessed the unfolding of these two live dramas of both accidents upfront in 1979. At the time of 3 Mile Island accident, he was doing a military course in the United States, and his wife remained glued to he and his wife remained, glued to television as minute by minute details of the accident appeared dramatically on the television. In 1986, at the time of Chernobyl accident, he happened to be visiting the UK. Here again, he says the minute coverage on the television of the radiation clouds and the possibility of a fallout of moving towards the UK was also followed with great apprehension. He says the accidents gave those who opposed nuclear energy a quite substantial narrative, and they could make their point stand out. UN report issued in 2011, which stated that there were 28 immediate deaths and a maximum of 15 deaths from thyroid cancer could be attributed to the accident, did not gain much publicity. The burning issue of climate change and the threat of rise in global temperature came to the rescue of nuclear energy. The nuclear industry had started to make some recovery when the Fukushima accident happened in 2011. This time, an external event of tsunami swept away the pumps of the emergency core cooling system, causing a core meltdown in 3 reactors. There was an economic burden, but no deaths resulting from the incident. However, public apprehensions about nuclear safety grew, and nuclear renaissance as a panacea became a casualty. He says that nuclear energy might have survived all of that in the wake of climate change threat had it not been for the fact that while the capital cost of nuclear energy kept climbing, the solar cells, which are also environment friendly, begin getting cheaper by the day. The foregoing, however, is not the complete story. Nuclear energy has also some additional psychological strings attached to it. People in general cannot disassociate civil nuclear energy from the radiation fallout of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It is because of the fear of tradition that nuclear security is as important an issue as nuclear safety. Equal attention, he says, must be given to both. It is because of the fear of tradition that nuclear security is as important an issue as nuclear safety. Equal attention, he says, must be given to both. In the context, it is now internationally well recognized that Pakistan has taken stringent measures to put in place a professionally strong state-of-the-art nuclear security regime. The foregoing public apprehensions about nuclear energy and has bring down the share of nuclear energy, particularly in those developed countries where it all started, from 17% to 10%. Currently, he says that not many startups are planned that could turn things around. The current war in Ukraine and the resultant gas crisis have combined nuclear energy. European countries are showing a tendency to return to nuclear energy so as to avoid the scary brownout winters without heating. However, nuclear power plants have long construction times, and the turnout around can be swift. However, this potential nuclear renaissance will go and translate into a possible nuclear panacea will depend upon how the professionals and experts in the nuclear industry, as well as the politicians and the public interest leaders, will handle the situation. The nuclear industry, nevertheless, must take proactive and efficient measures to get its rightful place in the global energy scenario. In my opinion, he says Pakistan is not only ready for technological proceedings on the path of energy through the nuclear route, but it is also a dire economic need for Pakistan's sustained growth, especially in charge of political environment where energy from hydro sources, the cheapest, has become an issue of divisive and uninformed debate among the provinces. Whether nuclear renaissance will going to turn into a nuclear panacea, General Kidwai leaves it for the experts, professionals, politicians to decide. What do you think of this article, the rundown of this article? Do share with us, and we leave the conclusion to you. And if you want to see more of such videos, please do share and comment and subscribe to our Rabta Forum International channel. This is me signing off. Allah Hafiz.